Hello, and welcome to the Root of All Podcasts. I'm Miles Newverth.
And I'm Deavan Newverth.
Hey, brother.
Hey, brother.
I'm excited for today.
Me too.
It's been about a week since we've helped people find what their 6 other podcasts are going to be. So,
Let's get right to it.
let's jump into it. What's our topic this week, brother?
This week, because fall is starting, we're going to be talking about football podcasts.
Excellent. I'm very excited. I think you're going to be going first right now. So, what kind of podcast did you pick out for this one? What did you find for us?
The title of this episode that I picked is Soccer versus Football.
All right. I love that. We get 2 footballs for the price of 1.
Yeah, it's great. So based on the title and without looking into anything else, I thought it would literally be talking about soccer and football. But the podcast actually only discusses soccer.
Oh, it's soccer versus other different soccer?
Yes, it
Cool.
is.
So it's
because
1 football for the price of 2, basically, actually.
Yeah, because most of the world calls soccer football, except for us, Canada, and Australia.
I mean, it makes way more sense.
So they actually so soccer versus football is from the show Soccer 101. Which is a series of its evergreen soccer explainers suitable for newbies and experts alike. They're talking about a lot of the basics of soccer. They mostly call it soccer on their channel because they are broadcasting from America.
Right.
But it is it's hosted by Taylor Rockwell, who's American, and Daryl Grove, who is English.
Oh, so they do have a little mixed perspective.
Exactly. This episode, they really get to talk about, the where some of the terms come from and stuff. It's really cool. Their normal show is the Total Soccer Show, which is more of like a news type soccer show talking about what's going on in soccer currently. But I was looking for something about football, and so this episode popped up when I was searching for it.
Right.
And B, when I know nothing about soccer at all, and so I thought Soccer 101 would be a better place to start, anyways.
Yeah.
But it's really cool. You get kind of both perspectives. One English perspective, one American perspective.
A quick question. Is this the first, sports podcast you've listened to, or?
It definitely is.
Okay. How is that experience? How is the sports podcasting world from your narrow view into it now? Because I'm not super familiar.
It's a lot so they actually started as a public radio show together back in 2009.
Right.
And they transitioned that into a podcast. So it's very much like if you've listened to sports talk radio or watched ESPN in the background. I'm sure you've had ESPN in the background working at restaurants before.
Fact.
It's a lot like that, only without pictures.
Cool. So what was the verdict? Soccer versus football. Which one won? I know that's not how it works, but
that's not how it works. What they did was they talked about how a lot of the terminology is different. Starting with, of course, soccer and football. Soccer comes from when they were starting leagues for football, which is called soccer here. It was called association football, and they shortened the association part to socer sock, and then they added because that was the thing to do at that time when that happened.
Oh, so you were an associator. You're a socier, a soccer.
Yeah. So soccer came from that, and it's not something that developed in America, but we picked it up, and that's what we decided to call it here. And that's where because soccer was what Americans called it, that's where people were like, nah. People in the UK definitely were like, no, it's definitely football.
Ah.
Also, they talked about where the football comes from. Where do you think football comes from, brother?
Like the sport or the word?
Why do you think it's called football?
Because you use your foots on the ball.
Incorrect.
Yeah, I figured this was going to be a trick question.
Tricked ya.
Seemed like a setup.
So football comes from like the 1300s because the the rich upper class people, they played their sports on horseback, and so any sport that was not played on horse and was played on foot was football. There's actually like written record of sports and games that were called football that were you couldn't kick the ball specifically in the rules.
That's amazing. I that makes a lot of sense, and I wouldn't have guessed that. So good fact. I appreciate it.
They went through a whole bunch of terms, and I don't want to go through all the terms because that's like the whole episode. The episode that they posted was one they actually recorded in 2016, and then they actually just republished it as part of the Soccer 101 series, I suppose.
Sure.
In July of this year. So they have the whole... And I actually listened to some of the other episodes just because I was curious about offsides. There's offsides in soccer, which I didn't even know that existed, and now I know about that it exists and a little bit about it. So that's fun.
My favorite, I haven't taken us on a tangent yet this episode, so I figured it was about time. My favorite bit of English slang or terminology that I just found out about is the way they use quite. Did you know this?
No.
So in America, we use quite to mean more, right? Mm-hmm. It's oh, that's not good. That's quite good. It means more good. Apparently, if in English slang, putting quite before something means almost. Saying that's quite good would be oh, that's almost good, or oh, she's quite attractive. I almost find her attractive.
Oh.
Yeah, which is something I never knew.
That's
and I
super passive aggressive.
Yes, isn't it though? I just thought that was super interesting. I'm okay, this makes some of the deliveries of lines that I've heard in film and TV make more sense. But I would have been so confused. This would have led to so many misunderstandings.
Yeah, that's definitely weird. So, like I said, I don't want to go over all the words, but there are some words that I wanted to play a little game and just see, if you knew the... I'm going to give you the British term for a soccer thing, which I'm sure you know all about British soccer terms.
Yeah, of course.
And then see if you can figure out, or if you know the American counterpart.
Yeah, this'll go well for me, I think.
All right. So the first one is pitch.
Is it kickoff? No. Oh, pitch is field?
Pitch is the field.
Yes, thank you, Harry Potter.
Way to go.
Thank you, Harry Potter, for giving me that one.
That's great. I'm glad that Harry Potter taught you something.
Yes.
So pitch comes from having to pitch the field, because they literally would have to mark out the field with stakes, and so you pitch the stakes in the ground, which is cool. How about kit?
Kit, is that uniform?
So kit is kind of a trick question.
Okay.
They used uniform and jersey. They talked about those. I would almost say that a better synonym would just be gear.
Gear, yeah. Okay, that's kind of what I was thinking. I was thinking
pads. Kit is everything. It would be your shin guards, your shoes, your boots, as they call them over there. Your jersey, all of it.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think gear is a better fit, but that's not what they used. So I wanted to give you both. How about this one? Clean sheet.
Clean sheet. They when you First make your bed.
Yep, that's definitely a soccer term.
Yep. When
Soccer
you make your
players
bed
are
before the
known
game.
for making it's actually you have to send in proof, photographic evidence that you've made your bed in the morning before you're allowed to legally play. That's a FIFA law.
Yeah, you gotta start clean sheet.
Definitely.
In the morning, just like in the military.
Or shutout.
Oh, right. A shutout. This makes more sense. Seems like it would have more to do with sports than my guess.
They go over to where Clean Sheet comes from in their podcast, so everyone should go listen to it.
Yeah.
And then there's one more, which is Touchline.
Touchline. Is that like touchline out of bounds?
Essentially, it's the sideline.
Okay. Cool. So yeah, I was very bad at that. I knew one, and it was exclusively because of Harry Potter.
That's perfect.
Yeah. Sounds about right. My lack of anything sports related in terms of knowledge. Wow, that sentence was a literal nightmare. So that's cool. Anything else you want to go over about your podcast, like the overall tone and flavor, or do you think you covered it pretty much in your comparisons with talk radio and that such?
Well, so definitely 2 hosts, which we've discussed before, is
Perfect
ideal.
Number.
They definitely have a lot of chemistry. They have a lot of they banter really well together. They've been working together for a long time. Like I said, they've been working for like 10 years together at this point. So they once again do a good job of just working together and going off on those little tangents, and they can almost tell the story the other one's about to tell before they tell it, just because they've been working together for so long, which comes across really like intimate, like you're just like hanging out with them, because it seems like they're just almost like they're talking with each other about soccer as well as talking with you about it. Like it's a conversation between the two of them, not just like taking turns listing things, which is very cool. That makes sense.
It's like it's another podcast that you can use as a replacement for Friends. I think that's every podcast, though. I've started to suspect that podcasts are just a replacement for Friends. But that's cool. I'm glad you enjoyed it and felt like you wanted to listen to a few more of their episodes. That's really neat.
I thought so, too.
Did you have anything else to add, or do you want to hear what my super exciting podcast is?
Why don't you tell us all about your super exciting podcast?
So, as one might do in a circumstance such as this, I went to my podcatcher of choice, and I typed in football, and something popped up that I thought would be really interesting. Are you familiar with a show called Welcome to Nightvale?
I am not.
Okay, so my episode of podcast is Welcome to Nightvale 134, the Fall Football Preview. Welcome to Nightvale is a fascinating show in that it kind of also reads like almost like a talk radio show. At times it feels kind of like almost like dated, like maybe an older talk radio show where it's like going over news points. And what's fun about it is throughout an episode, they'll basically give you like a narrative about this town through several different news points that move around the city that may have one or several strings of story connecting them. So this one ends up talking about the fall football preview, talks about the local high school's football team, the Scorpions, and a press release that their new coach is doing about the upcoming season. And so it starts with the press release and talking about strategy and that sort of thing. But the whole thing about Welcome to Nightvale is it has this sort of macabre, surreal aesthetic to everything. But it states it all in a fairly like deadpan way. So it'll state things like where the new head coach is talking about their star quarterback and the new strategy, which is going to be very exciting because their star quarterback has 8 legs and can jump 20 times its height, in spite of the fact that it's fairly small for a quarterback.
Oh, so this is nonfiction then?
Yeah, for sure. It's it's delightful. But then like twists will come as it goes through. Like I don't want to give away the whole story, but something happens and it disqualifies their star quarterback, and then there's like a secret strategy that the team has, and it all culminates in what amounts to them reporting about like the big game. And all through this, you also have like there's a music break at some point where they put on a song that's super interesting, and they do a traffic report that is this fascinating, like almost poetic, like has this odd sense of like comedic dread to it. That is their traffic report. It's really an incredible little show, and I'd heard of it before, and I'd listened to a few episodes in the past, but I kind of hadn't touched it in a really long time. So finding this fall football preview was a nice way to get in touch with it again. I highly recommend checking out an episode, because I'm sure there are other things like it now, because that's how things work, and it's been around for a while. But in regards to like a lot of the podcasts I've listened to in the past, there's really just nothing like it.
It sounds really interesting.
It super is. I love the way it plays with a few different genres, because it is telling a narrative story within this odd world. But they take so many, like they can do pretty much whatever they want, and they'll do it with like tones of sci-fi or tones of horror and things like that.
Sorry, I feel like I just didn't talk for like 5 minutes.
Well, I was kind of on ramble mode, I guess. I went really into that whole podcasty thing. I feel like I should have come up with a interactive portion. So we should play a game based on my podcast. Oh man, I don't have any ideas for this, brother. I don't.
It's okay. We'll fix it in post. It'll be fine.
Yeah, that'll be great. Is this the part of the podcast where we have a existential breakdown about our existence?
I told you we weren't allowed to get into existential stuff unless we found a podcast about it.
I mean, so that's the thing about Welcome to Nightvale. It kind of does that. I wanna talk to you. I'll talk to you a little bit about this traffic report. It basically starts off by saying like, "Welcome to traffic," and then it talks about this woman who like drives to work and deals with the traffic and the things she's thinking about. And she goes to work and she treats work like a double dog dare, where she's there for 40 hours a week for 40 years of her life for just over $1 million given to her in slow, small increments. And then she drives home. Like, it's this fascinating...
So, and that's all from the traffic report.
This is the traffic report, and it talks about like her life, like slowly, like time pouring out of her in the form of what she's spending in traffic to and from work every day. Like it's not at all informative. It's just basically a ball of existential dread in regards to how much time people spend in traffic.
Yeah, which is too much time.
I love that coming from a podcast, which is something that's mostly listened to while in traffic. You're sitting there listening to this woman, or listening to a poem basically about this woman, and then suddenly you realize you are this woman. Like,
yeah, definitely. That'd be really trippy if you like got to the point where you're listening. That what happens to me when I listen to podcasts is I listen without thinking sometimes, and then like all of a sudden something will like click in my brain, and I'll be like, oh my god, I've done that before. Oh my god, I'm doing that right now. Yeah. And like when a podcast will talk about like what you normally do when you're listening to a podcast, and all of a sudden they're talking about like you're riding the bus or you're doing dishes or whatever, and you're doing that thing, and it kind of takes like it snaps you out of it and makes you think about like what's going on around you as you're listening to this podcast a little bit.
Yeah. It's like that, but with existential dread.
Great. Who doesn't love a little existential dread?
I mean, honestly, like, it's not a fun feeling, but I love the aesthetic of existential dread. Does that make sense to you?
Sure.
Okay. I've listened to some other Nightvale in the past, and they do end up talking about things like some of the story arcs will involve like glow clouds that have been seen in the area, and they'll have like reports from people seeing things inside of them, and they'll have like they'll end up talking about scientists off in laboratories that are entirely abandoned now, or everyone's been killed, like. But it all has this, like, deadpan, like, this is everyday normal life that somehow makes all of it funny.
Yeah, like they're in some weird, like, comic book land where, like, that just happens.
Honestly, I could give you so many facts about this show, and it wouldn't ruin the episode, because so much of the importance of it is the way it's delivered. But they talk about some of the rival schools, and one of them's, like, from this town nearby that consists entirely of trees. And they're very polite trees, and they'll whisper compliments at you if you walk through the woods. But if you accept the compliments, you join them and become a tree. So their football team has the disadvantage of not being able to run because they are trees, but the advantage of being able to recruit people from the other team. Just any time that someone accepts one of their compliments.
I feel like that should be against the rules.
You would think.
I don't think you can recruit someone mid-game. I feel like that's cheating.
That's
fair. It must be a different league. Like they must have some different league rules.
It's a different soch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to give too much of it away, but it's a lot of fun, and they do end up talking. Like the whole thing is supposedly football related. Like everything relates back to this football team, but it's also charmingly macabre, which is a sentence I don't get to say often enough in life. So I want to thank Welcome to Nightvale for giving me the opportunity to say it this time.
That was very considerate of them.
Yeah. Do you have any questions about Welcome to Nightvale?
So how does it draw you into the world at the beginning? Like, what is it? Does it start with the traffic report, or what is the like?
No, so basically it starts like a radio show. It'll be like Welcome to Nightvale. One of the fun things about it is it starts off sounding fairly bland, and then it just weaves in the oddities like as it goes. So it'll just start off by saying like, welcome to Nightvale. Tonight we are talking about the Nightvale High Scorpions, whose coach has recently been blah 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 killed by a bunch of mutant muskrats. None of that is what happened.
You've said you've listened to other episodes of this podcast in the past. Are all the podcasts from this same fictional town?
Yeah, it's called
cool.
Welcome to Nightvale, and it is all based around this like weird little middle America town that suffers from like being the home of all of the mad scientists and cryptids and aliens and all of that sort of thing. I thought of a fun game we could play.
What's that?
So are you familiar with a lot of cryptids?
I am not.
Well, if of the limited ones if you had to choose one to like be the team captain of your football team, what would it be and why?
I'd probably go with Bigfoot.
That's fair. A lot of strength.
Just because, he's big, he can move the ball that way. He is blurry, so no one can see him coming.
That's true. I love that about Bigfoot.
Everyone knows that there have been a lot of pictures of Bigfoot, and they're not bad pictures. It's just that Bigfoot is blurry.
He's blurry, which makes sense, and it's good. There was a chunk of time in our youth where pretty much every picture of you that was taken was blurry as well. So at one point I wondered if you might not be part Bigfoot on our father's side.
Well, I think I'm 1/32nd Bigfoot and 1/16th Native American. So
right, yeah.
Work out that math.
I'm thinking, I don't know. I feel like Frankenstein might be, and I'm referring to the monster here, not the scientist, might be a decent team captain for the football team, But for some similar reasons. Like, he's pretty, brawny, but not very fast.
You wouldn't want to stop him just because the carnage that might ensue, even accidentally. Like, that's the thing with Frankenstein, is he doesn't know his own strength. So he's, even at the end of the game, he's trying to wish everyone good game, and he just high-fives everyone's arms right off on the other team.
Yeah. No, I figured it out. I thought of the number one best cryptid to run your football team.
What's that?
Santa Claus. Santa Claus.
No one is tackling Santa Claus.
No one's going to tackle Santa Claus. And that guy, he's dealt with more freaking kids piling on him than anyone on the planet. Also, flying reindeer. I don't know how they're going to help because they're not like a part of him. But I still think it's a solid play.
So you're saying Santa's the captain and the rest of the team are his reindeer?
They're definitely also cryptids. They're flying reindeer.
That's
obviously. My team. That's my team. Team captain Santa. At least the offensive line, not the offensive line, at least most of my running backs are flying reindeer. I think the offensive and defensive line, though, might have to be the elves, which is going to be a weak point for us. But it's okay.
They're creative. They could come up with something.
Yeah, they all built themselves like mech suits made out of toys.
So that was a fun game.
Yeah, I thought that was good. It's kind of in tone with. I mean, mine turned Christmas themed fast, but it's in tone with the idea of Welcome to Nightvale. If people like that sort of aesthetic, it might give them an idea that they should check out Nightvale. So where can people find your podcast again, brother?
The Soccer 101 is up. Pretty much everywhere. Their main podcast, though, is the Total Soccer Show.
The Total Soccer Show.
So that's what you want to look for if you want to just hear about soccer news and current players and what have you.
My podcast, Welcome to Nightvale, can be found on any of your podcatchers, as well as on Twitter at Nightvale Radio. They also have a Patreon if you guys want to check them out, or you can check out their website, welcometonightvale.com. They've done a bunch of different things in a bunch of different mediums as well. I believe they've done some books as well as other stuff too. So you should really check them out. Did we want to turn this over to the algorithm and see what it's got to say about our podcasts?
That sounds very reasonable.
Awesome McPossum. Cool. So I'm just going to start the calculations here. Awesome. Okay, and it's printing now. So what do we got, brother?
Well, the Soccer 101 in specific is going to be recommended for obviously anyone who wants to learn about soccer or football if you're not from the US, Canada, or Australia. But specifically for auditory learners. There are some things that would probably be easier to pick up if you had a visual image, but if you listen and learn better from hearing or reading than you do from seeing and doing, then this is the podcast for you. And Total Soccer Show is just going to be for anyone who loves soccer and wants to keep up on the news about it.
That's awesome. It says here, Welcome to Nightvale is recommended for anyone who has ever worn a brimmed hat. Okay, that makes sense. Specifically when they were in high school, unironically. That's cool, so I know that fits me. I unfortunately indulged in some of those obnoxious little small-rimmed fedoras. And also it says anyone who's with a good sense of ironic humor, as well as interest in the macabre or cryptids and the like. So if you like shows, like if you watch shows on like the Discovery Channel or the History Channel about aliens or Bigfoot, specifically if you watch them with a sense of irony, then you would love this series.
So fans of like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Supernatural?
100%. It's got incredible world building, and it's just honestly a good time.
Oh, and Beetlejuice. Do you remember the Beetlejuice cartoon?
Only very vaguely.
Oh.
I think that one might have freaked me out as a kid. Because I couldn't
imagine
even
why.
handle Our Real Monsters. That one was too much for me. But somehow I thought Rugrats was perfectly acceptable, so...
I do want to mention that Soccer 101 and Total Soccer Show can be reached at Twitter at Total Soccer Show as well.
Cool. Yeah, so you guys now know a little bit more about these podcasts. You know how to find them. And also, we've not told you once to tweet at us this whole episode, so I think we're probably broken. Especially because none of you really tweeted at us after the last episode.
So no one followed. So no one tweeted at us to correct us about anything last episode, which leads me to believe that everything we said was 100% accurate.
Yeah, and Red Circle said like 2 people in the UK listened to our podcast, so they heard us.
Yeah.
And they must have agreed. So
yeah, we're international. We had someone in Germany. So we had 2 listens in the UK. We had a listen in Canada. We're worldwide, brother.
Yeah, if you guys are out there, if our UK, German, or Canadian listeners are listening to this right now, add us. Just please, someone tweet at me.
Or do what you want.
I feel like part of me wants to cause as much trouble on Twitter as I can because you handle most of the Twitter.
Oh, thanks, brother.
And I think it's so funny. You're so much better at Twitter than me, Deavan, and I wouldn't have guessed that to save my life.
It's very weird, but I have a lot of fun doing it, and I would love it if anyone wanted to, have a little bit more discussion on Twitter. I'd love it. Let's at me. Do it.
Yeah.
Let's talk.
So my special thanks this week goes to Brother for handling most of the Twitter.
No problem, brother.
What about you? Who do you want to specially thank this week?
This week, once again, we need to thank our mom, Karen Newverse, for letting me use her computer for this call.
And my loving girlfriend, Ame, for this microphone that I'm using. I also want to do a special shout out to our dad, who helped program the cool sound. He helped me. He sent me the sound clips. He sent me the sound clips for the for our algorithm, because when you're making an algorithm, you have to make sure you program in the right sounds.
That's like 80% of the algorithm is making sure the sound is right.
Yeah, so big overall improvements thanks to Dad. All right, thank you guys for listening. We appreciate it a lot, and we hope to see you next week, assuming we get time to record within the next week.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Bye, brother. I love you.
Bye. Love you.